Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Everything Cooperative. This beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning. Sun is up here in Washington, D.C., and we're going to talk about food for change today. And we have online with us this morning Mr. Steve Alves. Good morning, Steve.
Hi, Vernon.
How are you doing this morning?
I am great.
Good. You know, I thought one went to school to learn how to produce movies and films to make a lot of money. Why are you doing what you do? Because I don't think you make a lot of money producing videos on food for change or documentaries on food for change and cooperatives.
Yeah, you know, I spoke to a very high-level person who advises people on filmmaking, and particularly in the area of promotion, and he sort of diagnosed people like me. He says, people like you that are independent producers, they do it because they can't not do it. It's like I was cast this way, and I went through a lot of other experiences. You know, I was in Hollywood. I was in the trenches in Hollywood making these B movies, stupid chase movies, very derivative, nothing particularly original about it. I could see my future in that world, and it just didn't feel right. And I got out of L.A., and I went to New York, and I did commercials and trailers and all other things. And then when I hit the documentary world, you know, all of a sudden, the world went from black and white to Technicolor. I was involved in issues. I had people that were real and family stories and historical stories, socially important, environmental things. And then, you know, every time I made a film, I mastered and learned another subject matter. So I've just grown tremendously as a person. And it's true, you know, my bank account has not grown tremendously. But as far as the rewards go, I am very happy with the decisions I have made.
So what are the issues? What are the issues in Food for Change?
I think they're the issues that are at the core of our society that have to do at the very base with economic fairness and opportunity and participation in your community. And the cooperative movement, which is this beautiful flickering flame that has never really grabbed on entirely to the degree that I think cooperatives would like to see it. And they consider it one of the best kept secrets in America. But it nevertheless exists and has a pretty significant impact in the areas where it does operate. So when you get that and you use the cooperative movement and cooperative principles as a protagonist in American historical story, it gives you the opportunity to discuss many other things. And the other thing that I get into in this film is that tension between power for the people and power for the few, power for the corporations, the tendency towards consolidation of wealth, monopoly power, which is a word that we don't think about as much anymore or talk about, but it is the logical follow-up to a lot of the discussions that have been going on today.
I like this beautiful flickering flame. I like that.
Yeah, you can use that whenever you want now.
Thank you. Because we get several descriptives of co-ops. Co-ops are people helping people. Chuck Snyder said that early on. I think that first October, he's the president of NCB.
I'm aware of that. He helped my film. They were a contributor to making my film. So I'd like to acknowledge that.
Okay, fantastic. And they are, matter of fact, somebody on the program from Cabot Creamery, Cabot Cheese, said that Chuck Snyder is an angel for all that he does in helping to put money in things like this. And this the bank is a cooperative, and it's cooperatives helping cooperatives, the sixth principle. But another descriptive I found for co-ops that I like is at Greenbelt Homes, and there's a plaque on the wall that said, cooperatives gives people the tools to control their destiny. And you talked about that power for the people and as opposed to power for the few. So I like these descriptions, but I like yours. I'm going to put that one up. A beautiful flickering flame that most people don't even know about. It flickers only because people don't know about it, and it comes in and does well, and then it dies out, and it does well and dies out. And I've asked a question on this program over the last 3 years, is why is it that more people don't know about co-ops? Why isn't the flame doesn't just catch on and grow? Because it has such great potential for the people.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason I made the film, really, at the core of it, because I am a member of a food co-op. I'm also a member of a credit union. I've been a member of my co-op, food co-op, for 23 years, I think, at this point. When I joined, I'd shopped there before, and I realized how much value I was getting, myself from being a part of it, but I also saw the tremendous value that it was giving to my community. It moved into an abandoned building. J.C. Penney had deserted Main Street, like a lot of the other big chains had. And, these co-operators went in there and revamped the store, raised a lot of money, and opened it. And it was a beautiful thing. It just added so much value to my life. So that was kind of the wake-up call. But then when I was asked to make a movie, which was originally planned as a small movie, and I did the research, I realized this is a great story, and it's really particularly a great American story. We don't think of co-ops as particularly, American, because it was the real successes, bigger successes happened in Europe, particularly in Spain, Italy, England. But we have had our own cooperative movement here, particularly in the farm sector. And when I learned it and read about it, and then I became an informed member of a co-op, and I felt like, I felt the ability and the responsibility, not terribly guilt-ridden responsibility, but like a positive responsibility, that I was in a position as a skilled filmmaker to tell a story that at the end of it, people would go, so that's what a co-op is. I get it. And they've been part of society for this long, and they're kind of consistently fighting or engaged in a struggle against an entity that is trying to make us less citizens, less informed, less participants in the destiny of our own lives, like that quote you were saying. Mm-hmm. And if you see the film, most people, the main reaction I get is they just feel inspired after it's over. It's pretty hard to put in words if you're just talking to, say, a stranger, and you say you work for such and so a co-op, and then they say, well, what's a co-op? And then you say, well, it's people getting together to start a business, mostly, to fulfill a certain need in their lives. And then you can cite this and this and this, but you don't get any kind of emotional connection usually when you explain that to somebody, and it still seems abstract, and it is abstract because they haven't seen it in action. Mm-hmm. In a motion picture and a documentary, you can show it in action. You can show people, like one of the sections of the film shows a young woman in college, light goes off in her head, she wants to create a co-op in her community in Keene, New Hampshire. As a young woman, she's probably mid-20s when she starts this. And she just goes about all the steps of doing it, and then you see this 10,000 square foot store open in the film. And you see in the gathering, the meetings, and the first annual meeting, and you just get a feel for that sort of human endeavor, which, as she says, it just brings a lot of joy to people's lives when they engage on that level.
I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier, and that is that co-ops have been around for so long. But how long is long? And it is the NCBA, National Cooperative Business Association. They're celebrating their 100th year now. This is where it's sort of a umbrella group for all of the co-op, housing co-ops, credit unions, all of the farm co-ops that you talked about. They all come together so that they'll have an organization to talk about the needs, particularly legal issues. Well, all of the needs for co-ops in society, and also to try to spread the word out about what co-ops are. But they've been around for 100 years.
Oh, yeah. In this country, Cooperative League is 100 years old. you can even go back further than that, and you saw some of the worker co-ops attempts of the Knights of Labor back in the 1870s or some came out of the Grange movement. But by the time, and you had a lot of ethnic co-ops, the Finnish co-ops, Scandinavian co-ops, they brought a lot of those principles here, Polish co-ops. And then it became more sort of assimilated into an American social movement, right around the time that the Cooperative League was formed. And then they started doing their newsletters and informing people and organizing and trying to get disparate groups to come under their umbrella organization. I'm sure you know all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And, it was a pretty exciting and hopeful time to go back to 1916 and think of, what people were trying to start then.
Also, it's interesting that there was so much going on in the African-American community, which people don't know about, I didn't know about. And matter of fact, Jessica Gordon-Nimhard, Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nimhard wrote a book called Collective Carriage, and she's been on the show a couple of times. And she said when she started her research, people told her that there isn't any history in African Americans and co-ops, and she's just found a wealth of knowledge about African Americans during the Great Depression, during the Civil Rights Movement, all the way through, and a lot led by women coming together collectively to solve. This is the other way I've found that co-ops are described as co-ops are formed to solve community problems, and African Americans have had a lot of community problems and still do in America. So coming together, forming businesses, creating social and financial wealth.
I'm quite aware of her book. I read it as soon as it came out, and I met her personally, and I was at the NCBA award ceremony when she was given the Cooperative Hero Award. She's a brilliant woman. She has uncovered a lot of what would have been forgotten history, something that I've also tried to do in my film, because if there aren't people like Jessica, Professor Nemhard out there, this stuff can end up never being known to the public. And particularly what she reveals in that book, which is, a lot of times in the black communities, they didn't want to have a high profile because there were so many people that had animosity towards letting them have fair opportunities for education, for work, for many sectors, that they didn't want to ruffle too many feathers, so they stuck to their own communities and became some of the strongest communities of all. A lot of history of black communities led some of the most powerful boycotts that the nation has ever had. So they know how to organize. Mm-hmm. The problem that co-ops have in more low-income areas is just getting access to capital. But when they do that, and there's a Renaissance co-op that just formed in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is poised to do really great things in its community. And the other thing is that success should not be weighed simply by, is it profit making? Is it, what's it doing in terms of business terms? That's not always the great marker, although we will definitely want to see that. The other marker is when you become involved in a co-op and you participate in it, you meet all kinds of other people, and you are really part of being part of a group and a community. And having to do that, doing that and wanting to do it and wanting to do it right, you have to grow as an individual to be part of that. You have to be a fair and thoughtful person. You can't be willful. You can't be just solely individualistic. You have to think in terms of the whole entity of people that your co-op is serving.
Well, the other part of that is what you just talked about, or at least what it hit to me, is the fifth principle of cooperatives, and that is education, training, and information. When you get in a co-op, that is a big piece of the fabric, is getting people to where they are knowledgeable, which means you learn how to work together, you learn how to solve problems together, you learn how to create plans and budgets and move the organization along together. And when you have 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 people working together, it's so much better than one person starting a company. And that's why a lot of co-ops don't fail, But even if they did fail, one of the things that Dr. Nimhard said on the program is that all of these skills that people have learned, they still have, and that's one of the successes I think you were talking about.
Yeah, that's the she ends her book on that note, which I thought was a really beautiful way to end the book. That these people go off into their lives and their communities, and they do all kinds of wonderful things because they got these skills, these civic skills, these skills to organize and work with other people and keep their eyes on the prize and not get lost in, petty little squabbles that can come up in any kind of human organization.
Well, when two or more are gathered together, it says there's God also. And I've found on this program that God needs to be there when there's two or more because there's going to be conflict. Okay.
Yeah. And conflict's not a bad thing.
No.
A lot of good things can come out of conflict and disagreement.
If you learn how to approach it that way, and that's what you do within co-ops in this education, training, and information. Yeah,
well, this does get back to your other point, Vernon. Why does the public not that well informed about what cooperatives are? And I think that Principle 5 is the neglecting of Principle 5. William Nelson is a former head of the CHS Foundation and also a real cooperative leader, cooperative hero. When he received his award from the NCBA, I think it was 2 years ago, he really made the point that co-op people ignore education at their own peril. And I've heard many other co-op leaders say this. These are like some of the highest leaders ever. If they don't do education, they're going to lose their membership, and they're not going to be able to spread the word on why cooperatives are a superior economic social model.
Well, the education, talking about Jessica Gordon Nimhard again, is that she had said that when these co-ops got into trouble, the African-American co-ops, they would come back to their study groups, and that would help them get out of trouble. So it's consistently and continually studying. And I have decided that if I die with studying in a class or a book in my hand, I'll be very, very happy because I'll keep doing that until the last day.
You'd be like Einstein. He's like working on his formula, and he ran out of gas and he collapsed. That was it. He was still trying to figure out the unified theory. Well, nobody's figured it out yet.
Speaking of education, Ralph Nader has asked David Thompson, who is in your video, to present at a co-op workshop at a national conference here in D.C. on September 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th at Carnegie Center and Constitution Hall. And on the 28th, David is going to speak on the 28th of September at 10:20 a.m. He'll talk about the daily and local impact and ongoing national collaboration of 150 food co-ops that operate 220 stores across America. Those 150 food co-ops do nearly $2 billion of business annually. So I would like to encourage you all to come out and listen to David. David has become a great friend of mine. He's an awesome friend of the cooperative movement. He's been on the show a couple of times. He got the Voorhees Award when I was the president of the National Association of Housing Co-ops. He's just a wonderful human being.
David is a friend of mine too, and I stay in touch with him. And when I decided I was going to make the film, I did my research, and right away, you cannot avoid David Thompson if you're going to do any thoughtful research into the cooperative movement in the United States and England. So I read all his books and articles and things he read well in advance of getting in touch with him, and then eventually doing an interview with him. We spent the entire afternoon. I ended up with 2 hours of material on David, and he became the anchor interview in the film. And I think he does a great job of filling in the story, that I tell from the Great Depression through to the present. And David is kind of the person I go back to for commentary through the film.
Yeah, David is the one that talked to me first about the African Americans, blacks in the U.S., and the correlation between blacks and the civil rights movement. I mean, cooperatives and the civil rights movement. And that's just almost like a one-to-one relationship. of sort of like if there may not have been a civil rights movement if it wasn't for cooperatives. Or I said another way, if it wasn't for cooperatives, the civil rights movement would have probably looked a lot different. Even Rosa Parks had been in training about the civil order and what are the rights and responsibilities of an American citizen.
In my film, I was able to connect a lot of those dots. And I can show the connection between civil rights movement, war on poverty, and the current food co-ops that exist, because a lot of them were seeded by funds from poverty programs, particularly my co-op was. The person who was the original manager of my co-op was got an 18-month jail sentence for trespassing in a Georgia restaurant, and I think it was 1963. So he was really, down there. He was from Chicago, middle-class kid, and he just saw the feeling of injustice, and like many young young in that era, he felt like he wanted to do something about it. It was wrong, and he wanted to right it. So, and he became the one who started my co-op, and so I was able to tell his story in my film, and also, co-ops that got started in low-income areas in Newark and in Brooklyn, and you can see this real footage. I mean, from that period, which was really fun to uncover, and I think really makes the film seem very alive.
Speaking of Newark, there's a housing co-op in Newark, it's 400 units. They paid off their mortgage, and they asked me to come up for their 40th anniversary celebration. I spoke there. It was a lot of fun meeting those folks. It's run by and occupied by black people in Newark, and you don't hear these good stories. You hear all of the bad stuff that happens in Newark and Charlotte and wherever else. But you don't hear these good stories.
How many units do they have there?
It was 400.
Wow.
It was in a beautiful, beautiful landscaped, gated community. So, it was very, very nice co-op. And I wish
the other thing is you can only do so much research. It's just so hard. You'd have to become a professional detective. But you never know. Some of the people that were involved in that co-op that organized for that, the food co-op that's in my film in Newark doesn't exist anymore. I couldn't find it anywhere. But you could see that the people who were participating in those meetings that you can see in the film were standing up and talking to each other and saying how they're going to make things different, how they're going to procure their own food, and they're going to sell it, and they're going to try and do better than the price that they were getting from their local grocer. And you could see that they were taking control of their lives and their situations. They might have gone out to do some of the things like you're suggesting, the same time period, the housing co-op.
Yeah.
Same area.
Could have been the same people.
Yeah.
So just real quickly out there, a co-op is any business you can think of. I see it as any business you can think of could be a co-op. If it's owned and operated by the employees, it's called a worker cooperative. If it's owned and operated by the people that uses the products or services, it's called a consumer cooperative. Worker cooperatives, any business, just if the workers own it. A lot of manufacturing businesses are going that way. Now, if you look at consumer businesses, we've talked about credit unions and food co-ops, housing co-ops. The people that own and control the business, they're the ones that use those services. And in Madison, Wisconsin, there is a health clinic that's owned by the patients. It's a patient-centric clinic. So the policies and procedures are created by the patients for the patients, the people.
Yeah, there's also purchasing cooperatives, which are big things. Like True Value is essentially a purchasing cooperative. It's a hardware store. In your area, there's going to be a screening of Food for Change. And October 31st, part of about 40 screenings that are going to happen across the country. And a gentleman who's been on your program a number of times, Paul Hazen, who was the president and CEO of the National Cooperative Business Association for several years. He is going to be at that screening, and he is forming and has organized a community purchasing alliance cooperative, which I find very exciting. It's for faith-based groups and unions, nonprofits, charter schools, enables them to pool their money together to get better deals from suppliers. And I consider Paul a leading cooperator, and he's going to be at that screening. And I've asked him to be the honored guest, and that he could also say something about the work that he is doing for the Community Purchasing Alliance cooperatives.
You know, Oaks Management, I have a property management business. We became a member of CPA, Community Purchasing Alliance, and we bought our copy machine through them. And some people have gotten solar panels, their trash. There's a lot of different things in this purchasing, and we'll come back and talk about that because we've got to take our first break. But I want to come back and talk about a little bit more about purchasing and marketing co-ops, which are other two biggest co-ops besides employees, worker co-ops, and consumer co-ops. But we'll be right back, Steve, to talk more about the screenings throughout the U.S. and about your film.
Okay,
please
Brian.
don't touch it down. We'll be right back, everybody.
1450 WOL.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oaks, Everything Co-op. You can go on our webpage, which is everything.coop, everything.coop, and you can sign up to get press releases of who's going to be on the show the following Thursday, and you can listen to previous shows. So this show will be on in about a week and will be loaded up, and you could re-listen to it. And Steve Alves is our guest, who has created a documentary, Food for Change. And Steve, you had mentioned that there's going to be a showing October 31st, and that's going to be at Busboys and Poets on 5th and K Streets. That's Northwest. 5th and K Street Northwest. Mm-hmm. So there's seating for, I think it's right around 100. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if it's going to be too small of a venue because there's a lot of interest in co-ops in D.C. and in your movie. So
they can always have another show.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that on the way here.
Yeah.
Pat Thornton, who's the producer of this show, has put together that timing, and Everything Co-op is helping to put that on and helping to fund it. So we really are. We've seen it. We love it. We're thinking it'll just help everybody if you can come out to that showing on October 31st. Now, where are some of the other places? You're using October because that's Co-op month to have showings throughout the U.S. So where are some of the other places that you're having these?
Well, since I was on your program early June, we've been working tirelessly to set up screenings all over the country. And, we've got them in Colorado and California, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Maine. It's going to be shown on public TV in Maine in October, 2 screenings. And it's going to be shown in Philadelphia, nice large screening there. Northampton, Massachusetts, we've got a beautiful theater. We're going to have music before the show. Michigan, Wisconsin. Altogether, there are about 21 states that are showing, the film is being shown in, and that's representing about 40 different sponsored screenings.
So I was thinking, like you said, music before. What kind of programmatic kinds of things would make sense before and or after the show? Because how long is the movie?
82 minutes.
82 minutes, so an hour and 22 minutes, hour and a half, say.
Yeah, okay. And it's a new version of the film that I just put out. It has updated narration and facts. It also has a Spanish translation version available that you can watch. It's closed captioned. And I just looked at the proof last night,
Okay.
and it's looking good.
So what I thought about is something before the show to maybe describe it, and then something after it in a sense of a conversation or answer questions of people. Are there for these screenings, is that happening? Is there some kind of a program around this?
There's only one show that I am sort of in charge of the actual elements of the program, and that is in my area in Western Massachusetts in Northampton. But for the most part, the co-ops are organizing these shows. We are giving them lots of material, like a new trailer, a new press release, photographs to use, and we've got about 40 different posts lined up to start sending out through social media that are going to happen soon. We are helping them have successful screenings. And in terms of the program, the one thing I think to keep in mind is that you're going to have your highest level of energy at the end of the film. That's when you look at an audience and you see all these smiling faces. You know, I've been to a lot of audiences, and they feel good after the film is over, and that is a type of positive energy that if you know how to focus it and capture it, you can do a lot of good for your co-op or whatever you're trying to advance here. So, like some co-ops maybe are a startup and they want to sign up new members or they want to raise capital. So that's the time to make their pitch. Other co-ops may be struggling because competition has gotten fierce in the natural foods area, and they are, against the ropes. So they're using it as a way to say, look what we have done in America. Look what we've brought to American society. Organic and natural food. Nobody wanted to go down that route back in the 70s. We hung in there because we thought it was important to have food that didn't have pesticides on it. And we've always taken a strong stand for that. Now we are out front on local and regional food systems. If you want to go shop at the other natural food store and think everything's equal, well, this film is telling you that there is a different trajectory that food co-ops are on. So those co-ops are using it to define themselves in the marketplace. So it really depends, what you want to do. You will be there. Paul Hazen will be there. I think probably, to sort of solidify the impression that the film makes might be a good thing to do to get those people to do something. Because, people want to react when they feel they've been moved in a certain way. And you may get some faith-based groups or nonprofits there that can be part of the Community Purchasing Alliance that didn't know about it before. There's a whole array of ways that people can use the film, and I encourage it. At a certain point, it's out of my hands, and that's good. I want the film to have its own life. I want the people who feel it, who see it and like it, to feel it's their movie. That like you have a song sometimes that it's like your song or your romantic connection with your person in your life. I want the film to be part of helping to create a cooperative identity, so that people that are working in co-ops now that don't know much about the past get us feeling like they're part of something that's really been special and important in our society. And that having that identity, I'm hoping, is a kind of a motivating and powerful force within them, because work is work. You still got to show up and do it, follow the rules, but feel like they're on a side of working for something that has to do with social justice.
Why do you think people feel good after the film? That energy level is high and positive.
It's a funny thing, because I have a lot of negative things in the film. There's a lot of things that don't go well in the history, in our history. There's the Great Depression. There's a lot of suffering that goes on in different parts of our society, and wars that we've engaged in, and witch hunts for communists, and you name it, all this negative thing. But I did not want to make a film that made you feel bad at the end. And as you sort of move through time, you see the co-ops are always doing a good and positive thing in society. They're trying to move us forward. And then when you get to the present day, I'd say the last maybe 25 minutes of the film is contemporary. You go to the Twin Cities area. You go to schools where the co-ops in the area have funded these programs to teach kids about good eating, growing your own food, what nutrition is. You see these lovely children in their schools going about it. When you talk to children that are in the fourth grade, pretty much anything they say is going to be amusing. It's like that Art Linkletter show of years ago, if you may remember. They're cute and they're funny, and they say the most things you don't expect. So you find amusement in that. You see that the power of co-ops working together can do in the Twin Cities area. You see a startup co-op. You see this effect of one co-op that goes from $8 million a year in sales to $27 million in sales in a matter of 8 years. And they're helping 400 local farmers and other vendors, and they're sending back $5.4 million to their region. Just in terms of supplier sales, you get to see that something really powerful is underfoot. And I think that people that are active in this area know that that is happening. Co-ops are one part of it, but there's a lot of stuff underfoot that is happening right now that people aren't talking about that much. That is the quiet revolution that co-ops always thought they were part of. That is transforming our society right now. And you can't really see it, but when you get down in it, you know it's a significant thing that's happening. And when the film ends, you get that.
Well, one of the reasons National Cooperative Bank is sponsoring this program, and why we have it, is to get this message out. The same reason that you did the film is to tell people about the positiveness that's underneath that's going on, and most people don't know about it. You mentioned it's the best kept secret. I think one of the other problems with co-ops, besides not continually educating, is that they don't shout from the roof the good stuff that they do. It's sort of like, we just do it, and maybe people will learn about it.
And I understand that impulse too, you like to sort of go about your work. In a lot of ways, I feel a natural inclination towards being an introvert. But on the other hand, if I know something and I don't decide not to be out front with my knowledge of it, and it stands to benefit other people, that I'm kind of derelict in what I think of as my responsibility as just a citizen and a human being, to try to talk about things that are good and positive and that move us, and the arc that leads to better lives for more people and fairness across the board.
Better lives, fairness, having a sense of, and this is a question I've asked for the 3 years, is do you like what you're doing? I already know you do. You've already explained that. But everybody that comes on this program loves what they do because they're helping other people. And one of the things about the values of co-ops, they talk about ethical values of honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for others. And when you're doing those things, it seems like you see your worth or your purpose in life, and so you really enjoy what you're doing. So
I was at a conference recently, and there was a woman there. This was all about food issues, people that don't get enough to eat, I could see that they were there working with each other to try to find resources to address this urgent need in our society, which is a major topic for Congressman Jim McGovern, who's my local representative, who we expect he's planned to attend the screening that we're going to have on October 27th in Northampton, Massachusetts. And one of the things I think when you're down in the dumps, and we all get there at certain parts of our lives, I've always found one of the best things that I can do is do something for somebody else.
Yes. Yes.
Think of somebody else. Try to be a helper. Don't just wallow in it, but be kind. And then that is what I think brings you out of those slumps that we're all going to get into. That's my prescription, doctor.
Okay. But you love what you're doing because you're helping others. And then if you find you're in the dumps, just go help somebody. Listen, if you have a question of Steve or myself or a comment, you can call in at 1-800-450-7876. 1-800-450-7876. And we're going to take our final break, Steve. We only have 15 more minutes, and then we'll come back and talk more about the documentary Food for Change.
Okay.
And how that helps people and how the co-ops have helped people throughout, I want to say throughout time. We only talk about since 1844. But that's what folks in Africa lived in tribes, and everybody knew what they had to do. We'll be right back, everybody.
1450 WOL.
Information is power. Well, the power comes from using the information. National Co-op Bank is sponsoring this program. National Co-op Bank customers are cooperatives such as grocery, wholesale co-ops, purchasing co-ops, or housing co-ops. Other customers share in the spirit of cooperation driven by democratic organizing principles. They may be Alaskan and Native American enterprises, which by their very nature are member-run and member-owned. Others may be community health centers or charter schools driven entirely by community needs. What they all have in common is a single fundamental principle. They have joined together cooperatively to meet personal, social, and or business needs. So we were talking about that earlier, that my view of it, Steve, is that when you go back far enough, you find that people lived in groups or tribes or perhaps in caves, and everybody had to work together. I mean, everybody had to have what they did for the group. It's sort of like this individual thing, this sort of John Wayne or what's that man's name? Trump. That I did it by myself. That just doesn't really, it never happened first, but there's always some other groups. But mainly when you have people working together cooperatively to make decisions that are best for the group, not necessarily what's best for an individual or their friends or family members, but what's best for the collective. Yeah, that's why I like co-ops too. Yeah,
I think a lot of the stories that America has told itself have to do with kind of the hyper individualism, the man against everything, and I think that's not a very productive story, nor is it a correct one. I think the more accurate story of humanity through the ages is cooperation. And we are programmed to cooperate, or it's encoded in our genes. We developed a lot of ways that we learn how to cooperate. We have these educational institutions. We have language. If you look at the formative years of our species, we had to cooperate in order to survive. We were small bands of people living 30, 50, eventually a couple of hundred. But, that was the story of humanity for, 150 or more years, 150,000, excuse me. Okay. And, and then we did spread, and then we built larger civilizations and larger societies, made things more complicated. But always, that impulse to cooperate, and to cooperate as a free individual, it doesn't mean it's an individualistic idea. It means it's voluntary cooperation. You're not coercively forced to cooperate. You're not conscripted to be a cooperator. You're a cooperator because it is in your interest and in the interest of your family and your community and society in general to think in terms of how to harmoniously make things better and not be willful and destructive.
So how do you think we can get cooperators and cooperatives in this dialogue between Secretary Clinton and Donald Trump? How can we get...
Well, I don't think Trump wants to be president. He wants to be king.
Okay.
So, I don't really see much hope in that regard. That man, he doesn't have the spirit of cooperation in him. And at least to say there's no evidence to suggest that, okay? If you're a public servant, it's pretty tough and you get beat up and, people attack you because maybe they don't like the direction you want things to go. But by virtue of being a public servant, true public servant, you have to learn to cooperate. Government is an exercise in cooperation as well when it's done right.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to put my vote in that case for what I hope will be the first female elected president of the United States, Hillary Clinton. And I think she understands cooperation, and I think she'll advance the cause. I mean, we are now getting very close to National Co-op Month. National Co-op Month was started. The first Secretary of Agriculture was appointed by John F. Kennedy during those idealistic years of the Kennedy administration. And co-ops always have had an idealistic streak in them. They call themselves practical idealists. Now, that same secretary was the one who created National Co-op Month in 1964. And so I think that is more the roots that we're talking about. We're talking about cooperatives, mm-hmm. and that's where they were formed. And that's, if you look at the quotes from Orville, he was former governor of Minnesota, and I can't remember his last name right now, but he was the one who put forward this idea, let's have a national month of cooperatives. And so that's what we'll be celebrating soon. It's a good idea in another way because co-ops need as many things in their favor as they can to help get the word out about who they are and what they're about. And I think that when you have something like a co-op month, and when I can have a screening where there's 40 screenings across the country during that amount of time, you get to sort of turn up the volume on what a co-op is, and you at least get people curious to wonder. Everybody likes the word cooperation, but they don't know that there's an actual codified set of principles that have to do with implementing cooperation in social systems.
What?
And it was Orville Freeman.
Okay.
He was Secretary of Agriculture, and he was the one appointed by Kennedy, and under the Johnson administration, he created National Co-op Month. So I see it as an opportunity to spread the word on cooperatives, and the film I made is just meant to be a story that you can watch, easily and enjoy, like any movie, and in the process learn something that you didn't know before about American history. And that is the impact that cooperatives have had.
So if somebody out there wanted to have a screening, how would they get a hold of you?
They should go right to the website and look at the trailer. And the trailer is part of a crowdfunding campaign. And then it has on there, host a screening. There's a fee for hosting a screening. We tried to make it as reasonable as we can during National Co-op Month. And they can click that button, and they will be on the list to have a screening. We will get them a DVD and make sure they get it enough in advance, and we'll put them on our map. We have a map on the website with stars of all the places where screenings are occurring. Anybody in the D.C. area could go to the see your star and see Busboys and Poets and the date that your screening is going to happen and location and all that.
What's your webpage address?
Oh, the title of the film is Food for Change, and the title of the website address is foodforchange.coop.
So anybody out there, if you wanted to know where the screenings are, or if you wanted to do a screening yourself, you could go to foodforchange.coop, and you can get all that information. And you can also make donations.
I didn't realize how much work promotion was until I took it on.
You can.
It's a huge task. But as a result of doing this promotion, a lot of good things have happened. You know, the film would not go nearly as far in the world if I didn't decide to be the one who was going to wake up every morning thinking, how am I going to get this film into front of more people and get the co-op story told? And understood, you know, that takes time and resources, and I've got 3 other people working with me on this, and it's, we're highly motivated, and we could use support from anybody out there that's inclined to give it.
Well, I am going to personally donate $500. I was looking at trying to do that.
Whoa! You just made my morning.
Well,
in fact, you made my day, and I think my weekend.
And I'll say this to everybody out there. I used to not say when I would donate, but a preacher said one time I heard a sermon saying that you tell people what you do so you have a chance to say how good God has been in your life, and He's been extremely good to me.
Thank you so much.
I've sold 2 properties this year, and I got to tell you, in the D.C. area, and I didn't have them on the market. People came to me. So made a few dollars, so I'm going to go online, hopefully before I leave the studio today, so I'll remember. That's my problem, is remembering to do things, but I'll get this done. We only have about a minute and a half to go, Steve, so what would you like to leave people with?
Oh, I just hope they see my movie. You know, I make movies because I like them, and I want them to be fun and enjoyable. And I like good, strong storyline, good narrative. I like humor in a movie. I like to feel when I see a film, particularly documentary, that, you know, I have a reaction like, wow, I didn't know that. That's really different. That's really interesting. I didn't know that happened. And, and you see things, and, you know, I just feel that when you capture somebody's attention at the beginning of a movie, and then you take them on this ride, in this case for 82 minutes, and it's over, and after it's over, they've gone through something, you know? They've gone through an experience. That's my job. You know, that's what I try to do, whatever movie I make. And I pulled out all the stops, and I tried to do it on this one, and I hope people get to see it.
Well, I saw it, and I loved it. I learned something from it, too, so thank you. Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you.
And everybody out there, please have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll be back next Thursday, and live cooperatively. What Steve has said to you, that's what's in our genes. Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Bye now.
$14.50 WOL.